Hello friends, in today's class we'll be learning how to achieve this beautiful skirt design on the video. So let's sketch it this way. This is the band, this is the skirt, the first layer, this is the second one. As you can see there we have 3 layers and this is the third one. And all these things are with gathers. You have gathers here, we also have gathers here. We have 3 layers here, 1, 2, 3. From here, this is the length of the skirt. This is the length of the skirt and we have 3 layers here. You can choose to divide these layers equally. Like the one video is divided equally. So let's assume that the length is 30. You divide it by 3. So each of the layers is 10. So we'll be having 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. Plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. That is the length. The length is 10 plus 1. That is, let's take for instance, this is the length, which is 10 plus 1. The 1 inch is for sewing allowance, half an inch here, half an inch here. This is also 10, half an inch here, half an inch here for sewing allowance. 10, half an inch here, half an inch here for sewing allowance. So we have 3 layers. In order to determine the width now, the first layer, this is the first layer, which is, this is the first layer. The second layer and the third layer. The length here is 10 because the length of the skirt is 30 and we divided it by 3, we have 10. So the length here is 10 plus 1. This is 10 plus 1. The 1 inch here is half an inch here, half an inch here for sewing allowance. 10 plus 1. The 1 inch is for sewing allowance, for joining. So you can choose not to divide it equally, but the one we have on the video is divided equally. So we divided the length equally, 10, 10, 10 into 3 places. So for the circumference or for the width of the skirt, you can work with your hip circumference. You can work with your hip circumference times 2 for the first one. Hip circumference times 3 for the second layer. Hip circumference times 4 for the fourth layer. And remember to add your sewing allowance. If you'll be having joining by the 2 sides, you add your sewing allowance. If the joining will only be at the center back, you add your sewing allowance. This is just for the fullness or for the width of the skirt. Depending how wide or how full you want it, divide the hip circumference for the first layer by times 2. Let's assume that the hip circumference is 40. 40 times 2 will give us what? 80. Plus your sewing allowance. In this case, let's add 2 inches sewing allowance. The hip circumference here is 40. 40 times 3 will give us 120 plus 2, which is the sewing allowance. Depending on which is the sewing allowance, you can choose to add 1 inch, 1.5, depending on the allowance you want to add. This is for the second layer. 40 times 3 give us 120. This 2 is our sewing allowance. You can add more than this. For the third layer, we have it to be 40, which is our hip circumference, times 4. And here we have it to be what? 160 plus 2 inches. This 2 inches is for our sewing allowance. Your own can be more if you are going to be having joining by the 2 sides. Add more than this. If, let's take for instance, this is the back. If you'll be having zipper at the back, that you'll be cutting the, this is for the back, and we have a zipper at the back here. So this is for the back. If the joining will be at the back, you'll be adding your sewing allowance. If the joining will be at the side, also add your sewing allowance. If the joining will be at the center back, add your sewing allowance. If you'll be having joining also at the side this way, remember to add your sewing allowance. So this is it for today's class. Thank you very much for watching. Consider to like, share, and subscribe.